Hello everyone, and welcome to another guide to survival in Grounded. In this miniature-filled world with tower and blades of grass and colossal insects, every step is a journey, and every discovery is a triumph. Join me as we deep dive into the secrets of this captivating adventure game, uncovering tips, tricks, and strategies to conquer the challenges that lay ahead. So, tip number 1. As you embark in your journey in Grounded, the very first tutorial mission will require you to fix the laser. Upon entering the Mite Cave and completing this task, don't rush out just yet. Head to the back end of the cave and break the rocks that you encounter. Doing so will reward you with a full stack of pebbles early in the game, and these pebbles are quite invaluable as they're needed to craft essential items such as the roasting spit, plank pallet, and the stem pallet. Additionally, consider crafting more than just one spear can be an advantageous idea, especially when you consider using it as a throwing weapon, because throwing the spears will do significantly more damage. Tip number 2. After completing the tutorial quest by fixing the lasers, it's time to investigate the explosion at the lab. Interestingly, the wolf spiders in the tree directly near the lab will actually remain dormant on the first day unless they're provoked. So you do have to watch out for the orb weavers. However, once you've fulfilled your initial task with the laser, head straight to the tree where the lab explosion occurred to kickstart the story progression. Again, the strategic move on day 1 allows you to initiate the storyline early on, and avoid those spiders for the most part. And notably here, raw science, a vital currency in the game, will show up as little pink or purple orbs throughout the backyard. However, it will not spawn randomly until you reach the tree and complete this associated mission. So ensure you finish conversing with Burgle, who you'll find in this mission, to trigger the appearance of that raw science in the backyard, setting the stage for your further exploration and advancement as you uncover new things. Tip number 3. To expand your capabilities and unlock the ability to construct multiple story bases, it's crucial to fulfill the initial story request. This step, talking to Burgle, is essential for broadening your options and enhancing your base building capabilities. However, be prepared to invest 1,000 raw science to obtain this valuable upgrade. Gathering raw science through exploration and completing tasks will be your key to accessing this advancement and many more in the future. Tip number 4. Utilize dandelions to your advantage in the early game. Just look up and look for the little white fluffs in the sky. These versatile plants offer various benefits that can aid you in your survival. Firstly, dandelions provide tufts, which serve as a handy tool for gliding down from high locations, offering a safe descent option. Additionally, they are the primary source of stems when being harvested in the early game with a tier 1 axe. Nearly every other item which gives you stems needs a tier 2 axe. And lastly, cutting down the dandelion stem bases will actually yield a substantial amount of fiber, typically ranging from 7 to 8 units. This abundance of fiber provides invaluable in crafting various items and saves you valuable time and resources during the initial stages of the game. And that brings us to tip number 5. You're going to want to stockpile sap early on, as it's a vital resource required for crafting numerous items throughout the entirety of the game. Now, early on, when you do first visit the tree, you will find large clumps of sap at the base of this tree and on large branches scattered all throughout the yard. Make sure whenever you see these large gatherings of sap, you break them down with the hammer, and each of them will provide typically between 5 upwards to 10. And this is going to be the best and fastest way to collect all the sap. Also, if you are randomly exploring and you see small branches, typically they can yield between 2 to 4 sap, so do ensure you harvest that as well. Now, to harvest sap efficiently, eventually you're going to want to build yourself some sap collectors, which must be attached to large roots or branches that cannot be placed on the small ones. These collectors will gather sap over time, again providing with a steady supply of this valuable resource for crafting and save you a significant amount of time. So just place it in a very optimal location where you can easily access it and then transfer it to your storage. Bring us to tip number 7, water. It is essential for survival pretty much in every single survival game, and it's no different here in Grounded. Now, you can find it in the form of large water droplets hanging from trees. It doesn't rain, so you're not going to replenish that way. To collect this water from those, I call them trees, but the little grass pieces, it's going to be dangling down. Simply just throw a rock or a weapon at these droplets to knock them down. Once the droplet falls, you can quickly drink the water before it even hits the ground. The reason this is great is because oftentimes if you whack the stem itself, it will hit the ground and then it will quickly flurry its way into a puddle or a crevice and disappear. So standing directly below it when you knock it off the leaf blade will ensure that you always get that water every single time, which is going to be crucial if you are close to being dehydrated and possibly dying. Tip number 8. Additionally, within the confines of the first lab, there is a perpetual source of fresh water. This means you can repeatedly fill your canteen without depleting that water source, providing you with an endless supply of hydration. This knowledge is particularly invaluable early in the game, ensuring you absolutely never run dry while exploring the vast and challenging environment of the backyard, because sometimes when you are dehydrated, it just seems like the water droplets are never there, and when you're full, there's an abundance of them. That's going to bring us to tip number 9. Another strategy for water management early on involves utilizing water containers, which you can build using the acorns. You fill up your canteen and then transfer the water to these water containers repeatedly over and over and over. And so you can amass a large, substantial reservoir of water in these water containers, and it can last you forever because it does not dissipate at any point whatsoever. And so that will also save you having to scurry last minute when you're dehydrated and dying to look for those water droplets. All right, tip number 10. Marble and quartz are essential materials for upgrading armor and weapons in the early game. Now, you can find these components early on in the red ant colony. It's important to note that the rocks in the colony do not respawn, or anywhere in the backyard for that matter. They are a finite resource. So in the ant colony, you can gather enough marble and quartz to upgrade your first tier 2 weapon to level 3. Most likely that weapon's probably going to be the red ant club, as typically you'll have to have killed those ants to gather enough of the ant parts to be able to build the ant armor to actually be able to go into the colony without actually getting attacked. However, if you go through a different route or have a different weapon, just know you can get quite a few of those in this colony itself. Now, speaking of upgrading weapons, it is advisable to refrain from upgrading your tier 1 gear just due to the scarcity of resources early in the game. Use this primarily on your tier 2 and higher gear. Tip number 11. Berries are another vital resource you will need to do upgrades for your armor, and those can primarily be found in the second area of the story, which is going to be the hedge area. Now, you can dislodge them from the tree branches by using a rock or a weapon, and once they fall, you can use an axe to cut them open for consumption. However, if the berries fall into the water, you'll actually need a dagger to be able to retrieve them. So just make sure you try and get them to land on the land itself. Unless you have a dagger, then no issues whatsoever. Tip number 12, also talking about the berries, utilize the jerky station to craft the berry leather. Crafting the berry leather this way offers a favorable conversion rate of 1 berry to 1 leather. In contrast, the standard crafting results in a less efficient conversion of 3 berries to 1 leather. So do yourself the favor, don't put all that work in to gather all those berries just to waste it all by crafting them the wrong way. Tip number 13, acorns. Those can be found at the base of the big tree, which you should have already visited early on, as we discussed in the initial part of this video. Those acorns can be easily broken down with just 2 swings of a hammer. However, do be cautious of the patrolling spiders in the area, just because if any loud sounds breaking their webs or their web sacks, possibly while you're hunting down these acorns, will trigger their awareness and they'll be coming running towards you. Now, these acorns are vital for crafting many things, such as the shovel, a chest with 40 total spaces, a sap collector, a spinning wheel, a grinder, a water container, and a smoothie maker, all essential. And I believe there's 20-ish acorns around the base of the tree, so hit up as many of them as you can on your first run through, so you can get everything started and going, and you can always come back for more later on, as they do respawn after a couple of days. Now, when it comes to the spinning wheel, it is crucial to start crafting your rope here at the spinning wheel from now on. Unlike the standard crafting method, similar to the berries leather earlier, it's actually going to be a 1-to-1 ratio instead of the usual 3 fiber to 1 ratio. So even though it may take a little bit longer when using the spinning wheel, just plan in advance, because that's going to be the key here, planning in advance. And then just consider building multiple spinning wheels just to mass produce ropes simultaneously, which will maximize your efficiency and save you a significant amount of resources, as well as exploring and having to bring those resources back as well. Tip number 15, let's dive into the grinder. You might be wondering where to obtain the flower petals for this crucial tool, especially considering we've already discussed the other 2 components in this video. Look no further than the large plants adored with the purple flower petals near the pond by the tree. However, it is essential to distinguish between the 2 different types of plants. The ones with the giant bulbs will not yield anything useful, Instead, focus on the plants that resemble the lilies, as these will drop the petals you need for the grinder. And now the grinder itself, the reason you're going to need the grinder is actually you're going to be able to make these different slurries or food. And what those are going to be used for is you're actually going to be using this grinder to tame up 3 different pets. All 3 of the pets that you can tame have 10 inventory slots, so they can help carry stuff for you. Now the first pet is the aphid, and that can be tamed with the plant slurry, and that special perk the pet is going to give you is they will affect the decreased stamina drain when you're running. So basically you use less stam when you're running. Now the gnat can be tamed with the spoil meat slurry, and they will increase your glide speed with the dandelion tuft, which I have not noticed to be super effective. I honestly believe the aphid's probably the best, but the third one that you can tame, which is also a useful perk, will be the weevil. You can tame them with the mushroom slurry, and they will reduce your thirst drain rate. So definitely take advantage of that early on, as basically either using less water or having more storage space and using less stam is huge in the early game. Alright, that brings me to tip number 16, red ant eggs, or what will be bombs eventually. So basically, this might seem like an oddity, especially early on. However, they play a crucial role in clearing various paths throughout the course of the game that would otherwise remain blocked. Additionally, you can employ higher level bombs to eliminate the molars, these teeth that you find, if you lack the appropriate tier of weapons. So while their purpose may seem obscure at first, bombs become invaluable tools for navigating some of Grounded's hidden secrets later in the game. Now, acquiring red ant eggs or bombs early on can be crucial for progressing in Grounded. There's 2 effective methods to obtain these bombs, each with its own strategy. Firstly, it's important to note that picking up a red ant egg will provoke nearby ants to attack you. Even if you have the red ant armor equipped, they will continue to pursue you and kill you, or until they lose aggro. So to collect the eggs and acquire a plethora of red ant parts, as well as other valuable resources like stink bug parts, ladybug parts, and even orb weaver parts, you're going to want to don the red armor for the ants initially before we do anything else. Then one method that I'm going to show you involves luring those large creatures that I just mentioned towards the ant hill. You can find the stink bugs directly behind the ant hill out near the haze area, and then to the right you will actually find the ladybug in the brush, and the orb weaver will be directly below one of the lasers. There's actually 2 orb weavers over there. You have enough stam to be able to throw a spear at one of them from a distance and lure any of them or all of them over to this ant hill. Now what you're going to do is you're going to find that suitable creature, provoke it, and lure it like I mentioned, and then you're going to want to provoke them into attacking you while you are near the red ant colony, and specifically you want it to hit one of the ants, preferably one of the soldier ants. That way it doesn't just immediately die, as some of the other ants are pretty squishy. And what's going to happen is you are creating this confrontation, basically you're instigating a bug battle or a bug war between all of these bugs and the ants, and most likely you're going to emerge relatively unscathed. And now after the majority of the ants are defeated, you can plunder their eggs without facing a whole bunch of resistance, as the majority of their colony will be wiped out from this. Also, you'll have the ability to go through and pillage all of the different bug parts from the stink bugs, the orb weavers, and the ladybugs as well, giving you quick and early access to the gas mask and working your way towards being able to get the ladybug armor. Now, alternatively, you can just opt to befriend the red ant queen without facing further resistance from the bugs up top, and you can just offer her a sandwich, and this will appease her, and she'll grant you access to all of the eggs that are actually there in her throne room without any repercussions whatsoever. So this diplomatic approach will allow you to acquire the eggs without engaging in combat and provide a more peaceful solution, but it will also lock you out of the loot that can be found directly behind her in the New Game Plus area, because most likely during one of the playthroughs you're going to want to kill her to be able to acquire those things. So you have to weigh the risk or the reward. I would say going up top and doing it's going to be the best way, because you can get a plethora of bug parts early on with little to no effort. Alright, moving on here to the next tip. Let's dive into the utility of the shovel, a tool essential for various tasks in Grounded, which requires acorns for construction. So keep an eye out for where the area on the ground appears to be in motion, and the message often "tremors detected" pops up. This indicates the presence of either grubs or larvae. Now the grubs are harmless, and they serve as a valuable resource for crafting early game essentials, like the Canteen, which is a lifesaver like we mentioned earlier on. On the other hand, The larvae pose a threat and will attack you upon pulling them out of the ground with the shovel. Now, the larvae can be dangerous. However, if you kill them, they will actually help you be able to craft the formidable larva blade early on, which is a tier 2 weapon. This blade boasts poisonous properties, making it extremely effective against enemies early on as you don't deal that much damage.
And then for the next tip here, we're actually going to be talking about clay. So clay is another resource that you'll need to find pretty early on. And you may have actually already found it before you can actually harvest it, as you'll typically find clay near areas that have like large pools of water. So swamp-like areas or within marshy areas. You can find it both along the water's edge as well as actually below the water as well. And all you need to be able to harvest it is going to be the shovel, which you'll actually get by finding the acorns by the tree and crafting up the shovel, and then you'll be able to get all the clay that you ever need.
Moving on to the next tip here, when you stumble upon the mint candy container at the game's very beginning location, you'll find it surprisingly accessible. Just give the lid a couple of good whacks with your hands, or a tool, or a rock, and it will pop right open. However, despite this initial ease of access, obtaining the coveted minced house within presents a challenge until you've acquired a tier 2 axe. Similar to dealing with the formidable molars we mentioned earlier, you can also opt for a more explosive solution by employing a Splatburst to blow up these different mints and uncover their minty contents. So while the mints may remain tantalizingly out of reach initially, there are inventive methods available to unlock their sweet rewards as you progress throughout the game. Now the next tip here, keep your inventory neatly organized by using chests, and keep your chests in your storage organized by labeling your chest with a variety of helpful markers. Whether it's icons, text, or vibrant colors, these labels serve as visual cues to streamline your storage system, and with this method you can easily identify the contents of each chest at a simple glance, making item management a breeze as you embark on your venture and look for additional loot. Now the last tip here, do not overlook the importance of placing map markers on significant locations you uncover during your journey. These markers serve as invaluable guides, ensuring you can easily navigate back to key spots whenever needed. Also, you can enhance these markers with icons, colors, and descriptive text similar to the chest to create a personalized system. For example, you can use a leaf icon paired with green for resource-rich areas, or a red icon alongside a bug symbol to denote something that has a dangerous bug spawn location. So with this approach, you'll have a clear and an organized map facilitating seamless exploration and understanding the safe and the unsafe locations without having to worry about re-finding something out or getting jump killed by a spider. Alright, so as we wrap up our adventure through the world of Grounded, armed with all of these invaluable tips and tricks, just remember that survival is not just about endurance, but also about strategy and resourcefulness. And if you enjoyed today's video, then consider leaving a like and subscribing to see more in the future.